Hello, our dear friends. Hello, beautiful, lovely friends, and welcome to this episode of Should I Watch That? My name is Janet.
And I'm Rachel. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. Greetings.
Greetings, Earthlings.
Greetings, Earthlings.
And extraterrestrials. Beaming this podcast into
real?
the universe. Of course they are. Come on.
We all know they're real.
We all know that. But today we're not going to talk about aliens. We're going to talk about real weird human beings.
Yes, we are. So on today's episode, we are going to dig deep, and I refuse to say we're doing a deep dive because that is the most horrific, awful corporate phrase that was ever invented, besides, do you have too much on your plate? So we're going to...
Or I'm going to give you time back.
Thanks for those 6 minutes. Now I can go to medical school and achieve all my scientific wanting to be Scully dreams. With whatever.
Oh
God,
gosh.
I hate that. All right. So we are going to be discussing Monster, the Ed Gein Story that was recently released on Netflix, I think a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken.
October 3rd.
October 3rd. And if you don't know anything about Ed Gein, sit back and relax, because we're going to tell you. Yeah. So, Rachel, would you like to kind of summarize the situation?
I would love to. Yeah, I want to start off with kind of a summary of the show. And then Janet and I are going to get into sort of a summary of the real Ed Gein and give a little bit of his background. So first we'll start with the show. It was co-created by Ryan Murphy. So it's the 3rd season of a Netflix series, Monster. They did the other seasons on Ted Bundy, right? And
the Menendez brothers.
Menendez brothers, that's right.
Yeah,
Wait,
that was a good one.
No, they didn't do Ted Bundy. They did Unabomber. Didn't they? Anyways, it doesn't matter. This one,
they did something.
This was by Ian Brennan.
Lizzie Borden. Yeah.
Oh, that's the next one, I think.
Yeah, Lizzie Borden's the next one. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. Created by Ian Brennan, co-created by Ryan Murphy. So it stars Charlie Hunnam as Ed Gein and Laurie Metcalf as his mother, Augusta Gein. And they were the two heavyweights in this show. They did amazing. So the series dramatizes Gein's life in the 1950s in rural Wisconsin. And it explores how a seemingly mild-mannered recluse hides a house of horrors that redefines American fears. So it frames Gein not only as a criminal, but also as a figure whose actions and myth influence modern horror culture, connecting him to works like Psycho, the movie, the Alfred Hitchcock movie, also Texas Chain Saw Massacre and Silence of the Lamb. So kind of the question that's posed by the creators of this show, and particularly what we're talking about Ed Gein today, is, are monsters born or are they made? And I think we should answer... When we say, should people watch that, Janet, later on, I think we should give our answers to that question.
I think we should. Okay. Our listeners deserve nothing less.
Yes. Our dear, dear listeners.
So, dear listeners, so can I start by expressing my deep and undying love for Charlie Hunnam?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh my goodness. I fell in love with him when I started watching Sons of Anarchy. For those of you who watched that brilliant series, he was Jax Teller. And he was amazing in that show.
And love of my life.
And I've seen him in other things. We don't really need to get into it. But just, like, he's a beautiful guy. And he's an amazing, amazing actor in this role.
Oh my gosh, he did so amazing. Like, the believability of him and that character was unbelievable. Like, and I think Janet and I have been texting and saying he needs an award for his performance.
He does. He was unbelievably believable. Um,
Yes. Especially, I will say, I mean, the whole time, yes, but there were moments in the last couple of episodes where they're kind of getting more into like the psychological part of what's going on with him. And there are
mhm.
some scenes where he's like breaking down. He's like coming to terms with certain things about himself. And I mean, Charlie, he just did it beautifully. I was crying.
He just blew it out of the water,
He really did.
honestly.
He really did. Um,
And I want to give it to Laurie Metcalf, who played his mother. I don't know if y'all. I don't know if y'all are young enough or old enough to remember, but she was the original TV series Roseanne. She was
yes.
Roseanne's sister,
I
and I
forgot
think
about her
even
in that.
she's in the reboot too. Yeah,
Is she?
but she was really convincing as his mother. Like I hated her immediately.
Well, yeah.
And that's always a sign to me. If I immediately love or hate a character, then like I know you're doing a really good job.
Yes, true. Yeah, I agree. And I will say, I thought that the show was interesting. I did think so. It was what, 8 episodes? Um,
Mhm.
and I did think that it kind of skipped around quite a bit. Because it kind of it went
Yeah.
back and forth without giving any spoilers. I mean, we know the story of, well, we'll talk about Ed's background in just a minute, the
Mhm.
real Ed. So, but the
Mhm.
show kind of went back and forth between things that were going on with Ed and his mother or whatever he was doing, and then Hollywood and how
Mhm.
what he was doing was influencing Alfred Hitchcock, was influencing these other creative people who were creating these scary ass movies.
Yes.
um,
Yes.
and sometimes that flip back and forth was like, I don't know, not confusing, but ill placed, I think, and timing wise. I don't know how you felt about that, but sometimes I was like, wait a minute.
I know, right. I I'm not a big fan of flashback, flash forward. If you want to have a moment where you have a memory of something, that's one thing, but I don't like cutting what I'm looking at and switching to 20 years down the road
Yeah.
and Alfred Hitchcock is pitching Psycho to somebody. Like I
Yeah.
I wasn't crazy about that, but the fact that it does show you the influence of what he
Yes.
did in the world, and
Mhm.
especially in cinema, um, I appreciated that, but I don't know how they could have done it differently necessarily,
I don't
but
either. Yeah.
I wasn't crazy about it, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. Um I mean, overall I thought it was well done. There were a lot of creative liberties, I think, that happened.
Mhm.
And Janet and I do want to talk about, because Janet is a huge nerd, as am I. And I know as I was watching things, I was Googling things like, did this really happen? Did
Mhm.
he really do this? So we are going to talk
Mhm.
about fact versus fiction in the show versus reality, or what we know of reality. Um, but even with the creative liberties, I really just think what they did add just added to the
Mhm.
creepiness of him as a character. I mean, he was a person, but also like this terrifying character.
Yes. Yes. And I'm nerd enough that I had to put it in table form in a Word document so I could reference it during the podcast. So I have one column for Netflix and one column for truth. So we'll
um,
we'll nerd out with you in a little bit and share that information.
Janet, did you know that ChatGPT could do that for you?
Oh no, it's more fun if I do it myself.
Oh, okay. I was okay. Yep. hmm I just told
Yeah.
I just told the computer to do it.
To me, there's something about getting the information and then placing it in a certain way that makes logical sense to me, as
Yeah.
opposed to letting someone or something else do it, and then I have to tweak it to make it make sense anyway. So,
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm just teasing you.
Yeah, there you go. Bad delegator.
I'm
Do it
just giving you a
myself.
hard time. Um, yeah, so and I was just telling Janet too before we started recording that this came out October 3rd. I feel like Janet and I agreed that we wanted to talk about it on the show immediately. Even
Hmm.
before it came out, we said we want to talk about it. I know everyone's been talking about it also in the last couple weeks. You know,
Yeah.
podcasts, people on social media, and I get it. But it really took me. I didn't finish it till today.
Hmm.
It really
And
got me. It's heavy.
it's heavy. It's a lot to absorb. And it's not the kind of series where you can say, "Oh, well, I have some time. I'll just sit down and watch the next episode." Like you have to mentally prepare yourself
Yes.
because if you know anything about him, I think you prepare going into it that you're going to see things that you maybe wish you hadn't seen. But I can
Yes.
imagine going in, if you don't know anything about him as a person and what he did, going into this series,
Yes.
like prepare yourself.
Correct. I would
Just,
definitely,
I mean,
well,
take it
listen to this
slow.
episode or Google him before you watch it.
That's a good idea.
Get the
Mhm.
highlights before
Do
you
it.
start. I mean, and I'm a true crime girly. I mean, I watch true crime a
Yes.
lot. Um, and of course, there's reenactments in true crime. Of course, they talk about details, but to see his crimes dramatized
Mhm.
the way that they were was difficult to watch. It was.
It was, yes, it was heavy. And I feel like I want to say trigger warning, but
Oh, all the
I guess it's
triggers.
just all the triggers.
So
um
many.
I I I'm going to give a I think I'm going to go a little spoiler that just heads up, like there's necrophilia,
Yes,
and
lots of it.
that's not common in anything that I watch or
Well, yeah.
really any of the true crime that I listen to. So that's a little rough. Like you have to dissociate yourself a little bit to get through those scenes. At least I did. So.
Well, yes. And after the episode where he had the lady on the table for a while,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
had I took a break for about a week. I,
Mhm.
I couldn't continue. It was also
And then
extremely
you went and
just what?
oh, I'm sorry. I was like, and then you went and cleaned off your own dining room table and you
Yes.
scrubbed it clean and you washed it down and with
Yes. Oh,
Clorox
I have the
and
chills.
yeah.
Yes. Um,
Yeah.
and that scene, that particular scene is not necessarily confirmed. I know we're going to get into fact
Right.
versus fiction, but
Mhm.
he did allude in some interviews to doing those things.
Mhm.
Uh, the other thing that
Yeah.
really unsettled me and I had a hard time getting through was watching him put on the skin suit
Yes.
and dance around or just and again, props to Charlie Hunnam because oh my god, I was oh
I know. And when he did that, I was immediately in the movie Silence of the Lambs,
yeah.
watching Buffalo Bill do his thing in his basement and the whew,
And
yeah, that
there
was rough.
is a scene where they juxtapose those two, right? So they show
Mhm.
Charlie
Mhm.
as Ed doing it in the actual air quote skin suit, and then they have a
Mhm.
scene that they play like next to each other, not next to each other, but right after of
Yeah.
the actor doing the scene in Silence of the Lambs. Anyways,
Mhm.
watch the
They
show and you'll see what I mean. But it
yes.
it was interesting and terrifying.
There was another scene that was almost identical to that when um uh, his the equivalent of his dead mama, I guess. He has the girl down in his basement
Yes.
and he's trying to get dead mama to hold on to the hammer and hit the girl in the head.
Uh huh.
And then you immediately flash to the same scene in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, I didn't understand what was happening. And then I was like, oh shit, now I see what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Whew,
Yeah,
like
that was
when it hits you, pardon the pun, like
right.
it's heavy. Mm.
Is right. Yeah, there is a
Uh,
lot. Um,
so
yes.
so do you want to kind of start a little bit with
About his background?
Ed? Ed was yeah, let's do that.
Okay, yes, I agree.
So good old Ed, bless his heart, was born in 1906. He had a brother, Henry, and his mom and dad and he and his brother moved to a farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin when he was young.
Mhm.
And he lived in that same house on that farm until he was arrested. Uh, Immediately, you see how fanatically fucked up religious his mother was.
Augusta.
His mom was a yes, like it's not just, well, let's read some Bible verses and say prayers before bed or something. No, no, this is like screaming in your face that God is going to punish you or send you to hell for whatever you're doing because you're not being a good godly son. And he, for whatever reason, I don't understand, idolized his mother. I mean,
Mhm.
just whatever she said, and loved her and wanted to take care of her. And all she ever did was scream at him that he was probably going to hell. And she used the phrase that he was the kind of person that only a mother could love.
Mhm.
And it just breaks my heart. Like, what would he have been if she had been
A nice person?
more normal, a nice person?
Correct.
Because let's go on the record by saying there is nothing wrong with religion. Knock yourself out. You do you, boo boo. But when you're screaming in your children's face that God is going to punish you and you should never have been born because
Mhm.
you're such a horrible person, eh, like there's a problem. Like that's taking it a little too far. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
apparently she also um she would tell him like every day that she wished he was a daughter.
Mhm.
And later they think that that sort of uh kind of shaped his paraphilia and like a lot of stuff that he ends up doing. But she also preached really hard about every single woman is corrupt,
Mhm.
sinful, and she is the only one that is pure or whatever. So yeah, he like worshiped her, right? And then um after she passed away, so she died in 1945. So he would have been what, 39, 40. Um,
Mhm.
and they think that that's kind of when he spiraled.
Yeah. Well, and I know we like I'm FBI. Like in true crime, they talk a lot about triggers. Like things were rough and things were difficult, but
Yeah.
then XYZ happened, and all of a sudden, click, click, something happens in the brain and turns someone into someone else almost.
Mhm. Well, yeah,
And
absolutely.
it, and so one of the things that got me toward the beginning when his mother's still alive in the series, and he's kind of has a really big thing for a local girl. He's got a big crush
Yes.
on her.
Mhm.
But one of the first interactions you see with him and his mother is he's in his dad's gone by now, kicked out, whatever, gone. So he goes into his mother's room and he puts on her underwear
Yes.
and he is masturbating, and then there's some asphyxiation going on, and she hears him in there and she walks in and she's basically like, "Oh my god, Ed, can you please just stop that? You're going to hell and blah blah blah. And how many times have I told you?" And it's
Yeah.
kind of like, "Huh, okay." That was I mean, it
Well,
kind of caught me off guard. And then I made me think about BTK because I think he had some of those same things that ended up playing out in his murders. But anyway,
sure.
eh,
And I think it's
yeah,
called what, autoerotic asphyxiation.
asphyxiation.
Asphyxiation. And
Yes.
you know what? None of these things, well, not none of them. Necrophilia is, not
Well, I think we can
a
say that's wrong.
thing you should be doing. Yes. But some of
Yes.
the other things like cross dressing, autoerotic asphyxiation, other things like that, like those are fine. Those can be healthy behaviors. We're not kink shaming anyone,
Yes.
nothing of that
Exactly.
sort. But she was shaming him. And I think
Yes.
that goes into the religious fanaticism. And
Mhm.
you know what? I'm just going to start on this point, that the question that I asked in the beginning, are monsters born or
Mhm.
made? I really think he was made. I'm going to start on that
I
track.
think so. I would agree with you because he, just because he was doing the things he was doing, he wasn't hurting anybody. And again, you do you, boo boo, like whatever makes you happy. But the fact that his mother had done these things to him through his whole life, the
Yeah.
shaming and the fanaticism and the guilt and the
Mhm.
uh, shame, I guess, is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It you can only take so much of that before you
Right.
crack.
And later in the show, he's talking to a psychiatrist, um and they're talking back and forth, and I think Charlie as Ed says something like, I think I'm broken or something like that, or my mind is broken.
Mhm.
It's split in two, I think is what he said.
Mhm.
And the doctor says, no, Ed, I think your mind was shattered. And I was like, yeah, that's so
Yes.
true. I mean, because not only do they later diagnose him with different, mental health.
With schizophrenia.
Yeah, he was definitely schizophrenic. And we'll get into that in a minute too. What schizophrenia, psychosis, which
Mhm.
I think was a lot triggered by his mother's death. I think the psychosis was triggered by his mother's
Mhm.
death. And that's when he started
Mhm.
to not understand what was reality and what was not reality.
Mhm.
Um, and they do talk about that too towards the end when he's, incarcerated or whatever. But I just think that's so interesting. Like, had he not been in that environment, I don't think he would have
Mhm.
become this monster.
Agreed. And I was reading, and again, not an expert, read a little bit about schizophrenia, but it, like that's one of the things you can have it, and it may latent, maybe not dormant. It's not the right word either, but it may not manifest to a significant degree until maybe there's a trauma in your life. And again, I think he was
Mhm.
so messed up in his relationship with his mother and worshiped her like he did, and losing her, not a doctor, could have been a trigger, for
Yeah.
the full on schizophrenic,
Well,
more than an episode. But
typically schizophrenia is onset in men between ages like 18 and like 22 to 24. So
hmm
if I had to guess, I'd say that he started showing signs of schizophrenia in his 20s, and then probably
hmm
her death was like the trigger of the psychosis and everything just exploded. That's what I,
agree.
kind of tend to think. And some of the other psychological things, obviously, he was very fixated on his mother. He had a very obsessive attachment to her. And,
hmm
you know, professionals think that because he had such a weird attachment to his mother, and we've been talking about this through lots of episodes
hmm
about mothers and their sons, he's like not able to form normal relationships because of how fucked up their relationship is. Um,
Exactly.
So the experts kind of say, like, after she died, he's essentially trying to, like, resurrect her. And that's where
And
the grave robbing is coming in. That's where, like, what?
well, and that's why when I was mentioning the cross reference with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I said
Yeah.
his pseudo mother. If I recall correctly, he was talking to his mom after she died.
Yes.
Like he would hear her and she would tell him. So he goes to dig her up, but he couldn't because of the kind of like what they
She
had
had a
around the
metal
casket or
coffin or
something.
something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was metal or something. He couldn't. And then her voice said, "Well, just go get the lady next to me. She'll do," or something.
Yes. Yes.
So he brings this woman, this body home and plops her in the rocking chair where mom used to sit. And now mom's home and everything's fine.
Right.
Oh my goodness. That was rough.
Right. And
That
I
was
think,
rough.
him hearing those voices, and then later on, when he's talking to the psychiatrist too, there's like a revelation about the ham
Mhm.
radios and all that, which I don't want to give
Yes.
away, but it's just very interesting. Like his hallucinations just get more and more and more.
Mhm.
So
And let's step back. What if he had a normal mother who had
what
taken
if?
him to a doctor and they were able to diagnose and medicate him or
Mhm.
maybe put him on some kind because once they do medicate him, he's a different person. And I'm not
Yeah,
saying medication is the solution for everything, but if there is a treatment for a mental disorder, let's look into it, right? And it just could have changed everything if he had gotten help
sure.
early. Yeah. Anyway,
And
could have, would have, should have.
I would imagine, like, not even talking about the show, okay? Like,
Hmm.
how horrific the abuse that he probably suffered at his mother's hands in
Hmm.
real life.
Yes.
Like, his brother died before his mother died, so we don't have an account from his brother, after these crimes were found out, to be like, "Oh man, we
Hmm.
lived a really fucked up life."
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
dad was an alcoholic and apparently also abusive,
Hmm.
but there's like no detail on what kind of abusive he was. Like, was he just abusive to
Right.
the
You don't know what he did.
to the mother?
Yeah.
Was he abusive to the boys too? But I mean, time and time again, you see these religious fanatical people that she probably had some mental disorders as well, including a personality
Hmm.
disorder, I would imagine. Um,
Hmm.
like I would have to become what he became. I'm just I can't imagine the level of abuse that he did endure.
Agree.
And they
I
only
would go so far as to say his mother was as much of a monster.
more so.
Yeah.
More so
To
because
do that
she
to your own children.
yes, because she as a parent, you're supposed to care for your children, And
What a novel idea.
but I just coughed. I'm sorry everyone. I hope you didn't hear that. Um but yeah, I it was just that was very sad, okay? And that is very sad
Hmm.
about the real Ed Gein story. I did okay, I'm just going to skip ahead, okay? Because
Okay.
I had some thoughts,
All right.
okay? Because the last two episodes in particular, I know that they were trying to show that here was a man that was broken, you know?
Hmm.
He's incarcerated. He's trying to go to therapy and come to terms with the things that he's done. He's trying to figure out what's real and what's not real. They put him on medication and he hugs the nurse. He's
Hmm.
like I don't want to not know what's real, you know?
Right.
And I was torn because I did feel sympathy towards not only, the acting in the show. Yes, they did a great job of eliciting emotion. But then,
Mhm.
as we've talked about, I was sitting there thinking, gosh, what horrible abuse he had to have suffered. But he also did these terribly, terrible things.
Yeah.
He
I,
skinned people and he turned them into clothes and lampshades and furniture and belts. He did that for real in real life. So it's
and he
like,
ate pork and beans out of their skull
oh my God,
and
like
used
those
their
are real
skulls as
things.
bowls.
Yes.
He really did that.
So I'm sitting
And it
here
was
like,
very normal to him.
correct. So I'm sitting here like watching this show, feeling the emotions that they wanted you to feel, right? Which is sympathy for him. And I do
Mhm.
to a degree, but then I'm like, what about the people he victimized?
Right.
And then I also start thinking, because I am a true crime girly, and you and I are both big fans of um, My Favorite Murder and Crime Junkie,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I feel like the ladies at My Favorite Murder over the last couple of years have done a really good job of kind of calling out and recognizing like society's perverse addiction to true crime.
Mhm.
And it's not just a story, these are people.
Yes.
So that was like how I was feeling by the end of the series. I was like, fuck, that was good. Like the show was good, but my God, the families and loved ones of these victims,
Mhm.
the ancestors, I mean, I know it was a lot of years ago at this point, but have to see this, have
Right.
to see everybody talk about this, have to see the what Psycho, right?
Mhm.
And didn't they? What wasn't there a scene where one of the victims, like son, watches one of those movies and he knows
Oh,
it's
I'm
about
not
Ed?
sure.
What didn't that happen? Did I make that up?
Yeah, oh, yes. The the um the hardware store owner, the woman that he murdered,
Oh,
her
I don't
son, I think went was it her
found her
son
body.
found her body in the barn and then saw the movie, saw Psycho or
Yeah,
something
later
or
on, yeah, he got real.
maybe, yeah.
I don't know if that was true or not. Did you come across that
I don't know.
in your
Mm-mm.
research? Okay.
No.
Anyways, but I was thinking about that. And so, in that vein, I do want to call out the victims of Ed
Mhm.
Gein. He did murder two women, Mary Hogan in 1954 and Bernice Warden in 1957. Their remains were later found at his farmhouse. And he robbed graves. Okay. Maybe he killed more people. We're not sure, but they think that he probably robbed at least anywhere from 9 to 15 graves, I think.
Mhm.
That's 9 to 15 people that he
A-
mutilated and butchered.
And to get that phone call from the police
Right.
or from the cemetery or from wherever to say someone stole your mom's body.
Yes. And then turned it
What do
into
you do with that?
furniture.
Exactly. What do you do with that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But he did
And
horrifying things.
it, are there, I think we've talked about different layers of hell, levels of hell, but, just shooting somebody is a horrible thing to
Mm-hmm.
like to lose someone to murder.
Mm-hmm.
But what if they did things with the body afterward? Like that's several levels down, in my opinion, of hell. I mean, it's, I don't really have the words.
And they kind of get into that too, how they think that these other serial killers were inspired by Ed and then inspired by
Mm-hmm.
each other. Talking about
Mm-hmm.
Birdman, who was what, Robert Spark or Spunk or whatever his name was.
Uh,
Um,
yes.
and then there was Ted Bundy,
Oh,
they said was inspired. Now, I did look it up, and there's part of the movie where Ed is locked up, and they try to allude that Ed helped find Ted Bundy. But I
Yeah,
Googled that, and that was not
that's
true.
false.
Yeah,
Richard Speck
that's it.
was the other serial killer, and that's also not true. Like I feel like there was almost a whole episode about Richard Speck and his nature and how he tipped him off about Ed Bundy, but my research shows that they never communicated in real life, and they operated decades apart
Right.
and in different states and did not have a connection. So I think that was just to add a little drama, maybe.
Yes, no, I
I don't know.
agree. But I think the underlying tone of that was really just to say his crimes were so horrifying. They inspired these horrifying movies that potentially also inspired future killers.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or not future, but you know what I mean, other killers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It, it
that was my
kind of
kind of
about your the monster comments
yeah.
and what society does now and what's mainstream now that was not mainstream before.
Mm-hmm.
They show a scene from Psycho, like the first, I guess,
Yes.
theatrical release of Psycho, and Alfred Hitchcock is in the audience and all this stuff. Well, I mean, Psycho, it's creepy and weird, stabby, stabby, but by today's standards, I
It was
mean,
nothing.
there's a whole lot worse out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed these people, and I don't know if this is true or not, were like running out of the theater, like
Vomiting,
getting sick,
passing
vomiting.
out.
One woman looked like she was going into labor. She was pregnant,
Mm-mm.
like it was so horrible it put her in labor. And I it was almost laughable, I guess, as to what we've seen, you and I, in our lifetime,
Yeah.
which is you can turn on the TV at any given night and see stuff worse than that. Um,
Yeah.
but that was, yeah, very interesting to me.
Well, but that also goes like the access.
Hmm.
Everybody didn't have a TV back then. You went to the movies
Right.
to see things. Like now there's just
And
such
they
an
didn't show things like
availability.
that.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Um right, so we're like desensitized to it
Yes, completely.
today in a way that people were not 75 years ago, in the 50s.
Hmm.
Oh, the 50s was 75 years ago. Ooh, I said that out loud and then I was like,
Don't say that out
"Wait.
loud.
Wait.
Stop your nonsense.
That sounds like a
Stop
long time." Ugh. Ugh.
it.
Um So I do want to get into, I know we've kind of been talking about it back and forth anyway, but let's talk about some fiction versus fact.
Let's
Um,
do that.
for the show versus real. And the first thing I want to bring up is the number of murders. And I know we've kind of already mentioned this, but in the show, excuse me, in the series, it does suggest that he killed more people. Um, but there's only 2 confirmed murders of Mary Hogan
Hmm.
and Bernice Warden. So the show kind of, added a little more spice to that. But you know what? Maybe he did. Forensic evidence back then and for the processing of crime scenes and things like that, like are not as good as were not as good as they are today.
Hmm.
So maybe he
Well,
did kill more victims.
and we're lucky that they even took pictures of his house. The
Yeah.
police did, or there were
Yeah.
actual, because I think they showed that in the movie, like actual photographs of what the
Oh,
house looked like when the police went in, right?
yes. Yes.
Um, but I also read that they only tried him for the 2 murders because he passed a polygraph. When they asked him if he killed other people, he apparently, because we
Is
all know a polygraph is, the truth.
well,
Um,
today we know that it's not very reliable, right?
today we know that it's
But
right.
back then they were like, this is revolutionary.
It's magic. In the Netflix series, they also set him up as his brother's murderer.
Yes.
And that was never, the best I could find is that his brother died under mysterious circumstances, but there was never any evidence that he killed him.
Yeah. I looked that up too. Like, given his other crimes, I would not be surprised if he did.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, the suspicious circumstances of his brother's death is that he died in a fire, supposedly, in a brush
Mm-hmm.
fire or whatever. But when, law enforcement got there, like, they could tell he had been dead before the fire.
Right.
So it
And
was
I
like,
guess for whatever reason they didn't look into it any further. I
no,
don't
they did. They just took Ed's word,
know.
and
Mm-hmm.
Ed, Ed, Ed's not trustworthy. But they didn't know that then, obviously. I mean, everybody just thought he was like
Obviously.
a weirdo, which he was, but like, I don't know.
It's a pretty big leap from weirdo to murderer. So
Correct. Um, the series also dramatized a romantic relationship, or really a friendship that tried to turn romantic, with Adeline Watkins.
mm-hmm.
And they portrayed her as being a participant in his crimes, and potentially photographing them or whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but in reality, there is an Adeline Watkins. I looked that up. That's one of the things I paused the
Yep.
show to Google. I was like, was Ed ever married? Because they made it. Um, and apparently they were just like acquaintances. And she first, see, this is what I wasn't sure about when I looked it up. It said that she first made a statement that said they had been in a romantic relationship for a long time. They had been friends and then romantic, and it was long term. And then all of a sudden, she turned around and was like, wait, I lied. That's not true.
Right.
We were never romantic.
Yeah, and
So, and
yeah, and I
anybody,
read that like she yeah, oh, go ahead.
and anybody that would claim to have a relationship with him at all is probably also not truthful. So it's
Probably.
like, so, so we don't really know, right? How
Mm-hmm.
much, if she was involved or not involved, um, with the crimes, I mean, or how much she knew about them. I don't know. But it
Well,
was
and
disputed
she
that
was
they
a
were not. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Well, and she was a major character in the like in his life. I
In the
mean, like
show,
he
in
was
the show,
obviously
yeah.
yeah, in the show, in love with her, and like she was dark and twisty, and like
Mm-hmm.
even she was going to New York for something, and even before she left, she's like, well, you know, if you're not going to have me, then maybe you can go dig up a nice lady and have her while I'm gone. And I was like,
Oh,
ha ha.
that's when he
No
had the
thanks.
woman on his table for a long time. Um,
Oh.
that was hard. That was, yeah, that was rough for me.
Well,
I
and I
understand
so I
being.
again, go ahead.
I was gonna say I understand being macabre and twisty, and I definitely have always been to a certain degree. Even as a kid, I loved ghost stories and like stuff like that. But this stuff, mm-mm. Like there's
Yeah, we all have lines that we draw. So,
yes.
um, but I researched the necrophilia because I had heard that
Oh
before, but and they made it very clear in the Netflix series that he did clearly.
yeah.
But I have one source that said he stated he didn't do this because the body smelled too bad.
Oh, I
But
hope.
then, an yeah, another source that says because he couldn't exhume his own mother's body, he started robbing graves for bodies of middle-aged women who resembled her,
Yes.
and said that he did partake with those
Oh,
bodies, and then also, like we talked about, use them like to create masks and clothing and housewares.
housewares. Ugh. Janet,
Housewares.
don't
I
say it
know.
like that. Oh.
I know.
And he
Mm.
really did. He really did save their vulvas, didn't he?
Save their who?
Their vulvas.
What? Yes. I mean, that is a whole
That.
nother level of fucked up that
I
I
mean,
can't handle.
well, he also saved their nipples. He did. He made
Yes.
it into a belt,
A
right?
belt. A belt. Yes. Whew.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Um,
Uh,
so
Um.
another interesting thing, uh, there's a Netflix series called Mindhunter, which I highly
Mhm.
recommend and I absolutely loved, and I almost shed a tear when it did not get renewed. Um, but toward the end of this Netflix series on Ed Gein, you see basically two guys who look almost like the actors from Mindhunter show up to interview him, like they did with other serial killers in the Mindhunter series. But
Mhm.
this is not true. Um, in reality, he was arrested in 1957, and that predates the FBI's behavioral science unit, and there's no records of him
Ah.
being formally interviewed by the FBI for any purpose whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that's
So
good
I
to
thought that
call
was
out.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was another just sensationalizing kind of
Sure. And they had to
what
make
was
a good
happening.
show, which they did.
Hmm.
But there have been some critics of the show that say they took too many liberties and, it's misleading, which it's a show.
It's
They're not, you
it's
know,
half fiction, half
yes,
truth.
like Ryan Murphy didn't come out and say this is like a biographical show. He came out and said this
Exactly.
is a dramatization, which is what they did. And I think they did a
Hmm.
great job. But I do
Yes.
think it's worth people looking into these things and not going around being like, "Oh, did you see the real Ed Gein actually did this and this and this?"
Hmm.
But, people aren't very smart all the time, so whatever. Um I found this and I'm just going to read it because I think it's very interesting and they're saying it way better than I could, but um
Hmm.
it says, unlike most serial killers, Ed Gein wasn't driven by thrill, power, or dominance. His crimes were deeply psychological and symbolic, rooted in trauma, grief, and psychosis rather than pure malice. He's also often classified as a psychotic offender rather than a psychopathic one, where a psychopath
Mm.
kills with awareness and manipulation. Gein's acts reflected severe mental illness and delusional compulsion.
I like that,
Yeah,
and it makes a lot of sense.
it does make a lot of sense. And I feel like they try to kind of portray that in the show too, like at the towards the end when he's locked up, he's in the mental institution, like he basically becomes kind of friends with some of the folks that are there to take care of them. Like, and they say, "I know you're not bad," and
Hmm.
it goes back to the central question, right? Are killers born or made, or monsters, right?
Right.
And I think, as you mentioned, if he had had proper treatment and care, like I don't think that he would have made it through his whole life without a mental illness. If you have schizophrenia, you have it. It has a genetic link,
Hmm.
right? But if he was in a nurturing environment, if Ed
Right.
Gein had been born my child, then I don't think he would have turned out this way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Having known you for a long time, I agree. I agree.
um, and I kind of want to bring that. I want to keep talking for a minute, Janet. Is that okay with you?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So I have a background in psychology. It is fascinating to me. People are fascinating, human behavior. And I feel like so often with shows like this and in the true crime sphere, there's such there's such a tendency for people to think that all these killers are mentally ill.
Hmm.
And that's not true. And I want to dispel that immediately with statistics.
Yes, please.
decades, decades, and decades of research shows that only about 3 to 5% of all violent acts in the United States can be attributed to individuals with serious mental illness. That means 95% of violent acts in our country are perpetrated by people without mental illness.
Hmm.
So people with mental disorders are 10 times more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. So I just want to put that out there because I think there is just that misinformation or just people, because we have such a fascination with killers and serial killers in this country and our culture, that people automatically think, oh, they did that, they're definitely mentally ill. Like, actually, no.
Hmm.
No.
Well,
Um, and substance abuse is actually one of the leading predictor. So, substance abuse, not mental illness itself, is the strongest single predictor of violence among psychiatric patients.
I, I'm glad you shared that because I think a lot of times when you hear of somebody doing something absolutely horrible, your
Yes.
first thought is, "Oh my God, they've got to be crazy." You see what that crazy person did, and
Right.
that's a very generic term, and you never know the real reason that people do the things they do. And in some cases, I think yes, he probably had just a full blown, unmedicated, untreated, undocumented diagnosis of schizophrenia, and it led him to make a lot of horrible, horrible decisions.
Yeah.
But just because you're diagnosed with schizophrenia, or just because you may be bipolar, or one of 100 other things, doesn't
Hmm.
mean that you're going to make a skin suit for
Okay.
people in the cemetery.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Um, that's so true. And I do want to, okay, here's, I do have a list, Janet.
Okay.
There there are certain psychiatric disorders that show the strongest correlation or eh, towards violent behavior. So, while
Hmm.
most psychiatric diagnoses don't predict violence, certain conditions are associated with a slightly higher risk, and usually it's co-occurring with other factors. But the first one is antisocial personality disorder. That is strongly linked to violent behavior in 40 to 50% of the prison population.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy? Um,
Interesting.
so that's one. Substance use disorders, as I mentioned, is the most consistent risk factor for aggression and impulsivity, which, yes, that makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
Paranoid schizophrenia, if it's untreated. Again,
Hmm.
if Ed had been diagnosed and treated, would he have made skin suits and lampshades? I'm not sure. I think he would have been at a lower risk. Okay, everyone?
I think
Um,
so. Yes.
so if that schizophrenia is untreated, it may increase the risk if delusions or hallucinations involve perceived threat.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. And they did kind of
Yep.
show that in the
Yep.
show, right? One of his hallucinations was that he killed one of the nurses because she replaced like the nurse that he liked or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So he saw her as a threat.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, so that's that. Bipolar disorder, if they're in a manic episode, they're rarely violent, but manic episode or the manic phase does increase impulsivity. And if that's
Mm.
combined with substance use or, a potential psychotic episode, they could become violent. And then PTSD or severe trauma histories. It can increase irritability or reactivity, especially if paired with substance misuse, which I think we see, and this is not on my notes, but I'm just extrapolating here, which I think we see a lot with military. With
Mm-hmm.
veterans, a large portion of that population does suffer from PTSD. And I think I don't have the statistic in front of me, but they seem to be aggressive.
Mhm. Mhm.
And who can blame them,
Yeah.
right? That's another, I think, instance of someone that's created and not made, or made not born. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So I have a question for you,
Okay.
and it's kind of, you know, back to what you mentioned earlier about how we've become desensitized to things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the horror movie genre
Mm-hmm.
and the true crime genre and the fact that we want the gory details and it's not enough to say he was a serial killer. Like, I want to know, how did he lure his victims? What did he do to his victims? What did he do to them afterward? How did he hide it? All of these things that you want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question is we have the real monsters, but then after all these years, like, what does that make us? Voyeurs? Like, I'm not, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure what to call, when you want to know. And I don't think everybody's like that. I think there are some of us who are dark and twisty and, like the true crime fans and stuff, like we want to know the details. Part of it's education, part of it's morbid curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
But and I guess there's a difference between being curious and wanting to know and wanting to understand and actually being the kind of person who would do those things. So I answered my own question, but
Well, and I
putting it out
think
there for you.
I've thought about that as well
Mm-hmm.
for my own self, right? And I can speak to my own thoughts on this is that, at least for me, I'm morbidly curious, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see the actual photos of a dead body. Like,
No,
I do not
no.
want to see that level, but I am curious. I think I'm mostly, like I said, I'm so fascinated by human behavior and human relationships and psychology that I'm fascinated by how do people either become this way, or what circumstances led to that, or a lot of crimes and murders and true crime, a lot of that's crime of passion. There's very few
Mm-hmm.
people that kill a bunch of people. Like,
Right.
you know, like, still in the
Just for the sake of
population,
killing a bunch of people.
yes, like there's very few people, although the United States has more serial killers than anywhere else in the world, as we do gun deaths and all the other stupid things we do. But where was I going with that? I don't know. I just think
Just curious about people, curious about their
curious about, but also like,
psychology.
yes, and how can we mitigate those factors so future people stop doing these things? Like,
Oh,
can we
that's
please?
that's like yeah, that's like
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, from now on people are going to be good." I that's
Ugh. Well, no, that's not gonna happen. But
it's no it's never going to
but
happen. But
and I do hear people talk about, especially for women, right? Like, in my experience in my life, I know lots of women that are into true crime and not as many men. And, there's a lot of talk on social media and in discourse and stuff that, like, women like true crime because we're like trying to learn about our predator. You know,
yeah, I
women are
when
more
people
likely to be
ask
killed
me,
by men. Go ahead.
yeah, and when people ask me or if when it comes up in conversation, I'm like, "Oh, I've got this great podcast, that I listen to about true crime."
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh, how can you listen to that?" I like cuz it's educational,
Yeah.
right?
Research.
If research, like if one dude is stalking, if there's a Ted Bundy out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's stalking and he comes up to me with a cast on his arm and he's like, "Can you help me do this?"
No.
I've learned what is it? Karen in Georgia, fuck politeness. I'm
Exactly.
going to protect myself. And if I look at you and you look sketch and there are other people who could help you more than I can help you, then
Mm-hmm.
why are you approaching me to help you?
Correct.
or you're driving a black panel van. No way, you're not up to any good. I just you learn. I just it's educational. That's what it
Yeah,
is.
agreed. And as we mentioned,
And
like,
mhm, mhm.
go ahead.
Oh, well, I just the other part of what you said, how people in psychology fascinates you. I am fascinated by what happened to these people before they started doing what they're doing,
Yes, correct.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to understand your history. I want to understand your relationship with your parents.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, some people are probably nothing happened. They just realized one day that this is what they like to do and they're going to do it. But I think
Well,
some people, there's something that happens. There's a trigger, there's a factor involved.
yeah, and a lot of times, um, at least some things that I've read is a lot of it's like substance abuse.
Hmm.
I've known a lot of people that just in my personal orbit um who unfortunately became addicted to something, whether alcohol or
Hmm.
drugs or whatever, and that's what sent them into the spiral. So they came up in a perfectly, normal household, that kind of thing, and it was the substances that triggered whatever.
Yeah.
Um so not everyone experiences trauma, which is incredible to me because I have, you
I
know.
know.
And I'm like, "How you haven't? Wow." When I meet someone who
Wait,
hasn't experienced trauma, I'm like, "How did you make it this far without it?"
I
I don't
know.
know.
Like, what's wrong with you? How did you not experience some kind of
Yeah. Life
uh,
altering
yeah.
event, yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
I agree. But yeah, that's a lot.
Another point I wanted to touch on, and a lot in the series they touch on this too. Like I mentioned how he wanted to wear his mom's underwear.
Mhm.
Um, there was a scene with someone he murdered where he commented on how pretty her underwear was, and so she let him wear it. And
Yeah.
he was so happy, and he was trying to make a woman suit, and his obsession with women like his mother. Um, and I think, again, that's something i- at that time was very hush hush. You don't talk about it, you're going to hell for it, it's a sin.
Yeah.
And I've read the different watching the series and doing some of the research. Um, like, what did they say he had gender dysphoria? Is
Mhm.
that what I can't remember what the psychiatrist called it when he was in the mental institution. Um, but like he thought he was transgender, but not necessarily. Y- you know, just that whole situation between I know I'm a man, but I'm fascinated by these things that are female. I want to wear some of the things that females wear, but I'm still, and I just, and again, the sympathy, like, ugh, why am I feeling sympathy for someone who did those horrible things? But he was so confused, you know, and between that and the schizophrenia, like, if he had had support,
Mhm.
it's just, and again, and there's nothing wrong with it. If you're not hurting anyone, live your life and be your best version of yourself.
Sure.
But, ugh, I don't know.
Well, and
I
I
don't
do
feel like
think
I made a whole lot of sense with that, but
no, you totally did. And I think that that is like definitely a sign of that time, but in the show, he fixated on this celebrity who was transgender, male to female.
mhm,
And that's when he started to think, well, maybe I'm transgender or transsexual, he called it. That was before they called it transgender.
mhm. Okay.
Um, but I mean, anyone that's different has a hard time coming to terms with that, right? But look at this man's upbringing. He never had a friend.
Mm,
He never had a girlfriend.
right.
He never had a quote unquote normal relationship with anyone,
Yes. And
with
that's so
no other
sad.
person. His father was abusive. Nobody knows about his relationship with his brother. His mother was abusive. And then by all accounts, he had no other social relationships. So, of
Mm-hmm.
course, he would question himself because this is a
Yes.
person. I'm sure he had sexual urges. He had no idea how to interpret those because all he
Mm-hmm.
did was grow up being told that he was wrong, that he couldn't touch himself, that he shouldn't touch himself, that that was wrong. He's going to hell, blah, blah, blah. So it turned into what a paraphilia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it morphed into something more than it needed to be if he had, like you said,
Right.
any level of support or understanding from another person. Like we are
Mm-hmm.
social people. Humans are social beings. Like and research shows that
Mm-hmm.
people that die alone are unhappy
Mm-hmm.
and usually die earlier in life. You know what I mean? So, like, here's a man that was so isolated, and I do feel bad for him. But he also did terrible things. I don't know. It's he was
Yeah.
never he was never given the opportunity to be a regular person. So
Right.
there was no way that he was ever going to become a functioning member of society because of the
No, never.
environment. Yes. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my 2 cents on that. I mean, people do horrific things
From
to
the
other
beginning.
people. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
from the
I'm
beginning,
just,
he never had a chance.
he
Mm.
didn't, no. So,
So one thing we haven't talked about that I think we both were fascinated by was his voice in the
oh,
series.
mm-hmm.
And like seen him in other shows, and I've seen interviews with Charlie Hunnam, and he has kind of a almost a British accent in real life, sort of.
But
But
he's American.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty
But
sure he's American.
he has an accent. Yeah, you know. Uh, but his voice was almost feminine, a little high
Mm-hmm.
pitched,
Yeah.
and I googled that as well because when he spoke, I was like, "What the hell is happening right now?" But apparently, there's very limited audio available from interviews with Ed Gein, and Charlie was allowed to listen to the audio and use that to help kind of perfect the voice that he used in the series. I thought that was very interesting.
Yes, I saw something about that as well. Because I did look it up because I thought it was weird as well. But I was
Hmm.
wrong. Charlie is British,
Okay.
but he's lived in the U.S. for a very long time. So
Okay.
because it's almost like his accent is like an American trying to have a British accent.
Yes, or
Like it's not
British
a
who's trying to not sound so British or something.
yes. Like
I don't know.
his accent is very particular in his real life, guys, listeners. Okay,
Hmm.
his real life accent, and then for the movie, he said he made it a point to have this voice. Um,
Hmm.
and they thought
For
that,
authenticity.
yeah, and they did say that Ed Gein did speak sometimes in a more high pitched, effeminate voice. But
Hmm.
I did hear a recording of Ed Gein, like from an interview that he did, and
Oh, really?
he didn't have the high pitched voice. So I think it was
Oh.
just something that they used in the show to like be creepier. But he
Oh,
would
okay.
sometimes use that voice, but then he had his like regular, I don't know, deeper
Hmm.
sounding voice. Ed, the real
Well,
Ed.
and maybe that was part of the whole feminine kind of thing, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
I idolize my mother, and then I speak in a higher, softer voice to sound more childlike, or I don't know. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think he probably internalized her telling him his whole life that she wishes he was a girl, a daughter.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Who knows?
Insanity. So this is, I would say, our longest episode ever. We're over an hour now, but we had a lot to talk about.
But
I
the
mean,
things we say are very important, dear
so
listeners.
important.
Very important.
So I guess, Janet, is it time?
I think it's time.
Janet,
you do it. You go for it.
Janet, yeah. should our listeners watch the Netflix series Monster, the story of Ed Gein?
Yes, with a caveat that it does get very violent and graphic. So some people may not be able to handle that.
Correct.
So if you have any concerns about whether or not you should handle it, maybe you Google ahead and see which episodes have the horrible violence in them, and you can kind of fast forward or go to
all of
but
them.
Yes, I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Rachel.
And wait.
What?
I've got one more question. Okay. The monster question.
Oh no. Okay, ask me.
Monsters, are they born or made?
Both.
Yeah, I agree. What about Ed?
Yeah. Made.
Agreed. And I also think you should watch that. Dear listeners.
I didn't get to ask the question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Ask the question.
Okay. Rachel.
Yes.
So there's a series on Netflix called The Story of Ed Gein. Like, should I watch that?
100%. It was very good.
Oh my God, thank you.
And as I said, I think Charlie should win an award. His acting was just unbelievable. Well, no, I take it back. It was so believable that it was amazing.
Yes, agree. Unbelievably believable.
Yes. And also, he is incredibly hot. And if you guys didn't listen to our episode about celebrity crushes, he was one of mine, and we talked about him on that. He's a very attractive man. But yeah, so I think thanks for listening, everybody. I know this was a very heavy episode for us, and a longie. So thank you if you stuck in to the end. We both had lots of thoughts.
A longie versus a shorty.
A longie.
No.
But yeah, we appreciate you for sticking around this long and listening to us ramble on about a serial killer.
Yay.
Yay.
All right, so pop some popcorn, curl up on the sofa, hit that power button on the remote, and hope you have a great evening.
Yeah, and go watch Ed Gein do stuff.
There you go. Thanks for listening. We love you guys.
Okay, bye.
Bye. This episode was produced by Ryan Wyrick.
Follow us on Instagram at Should I Watch That 25 and on Facebook at Should I Watch That.
Email us at shouldIwatchthat25@gmail.com.
Like, follow, and review wherever you listen to us.
Or wherever you cast your pods. Thanks.
Thank you.